The tactical hologram flickered with the dying light of a star system that had hosted exactly 14 minutes of combat 3 weeks ago. Chief Analyst Vextar clicked his mandibles in a rhythm that would have driven lesser species to homicide, but the Kethmurran found patterns in everything, including the sound of his own irritation. "Run it again," he chittered to the display, which obligingly rewound to timestamp 14:23 and 7 seconds. "Focus on grid reference Kappa 77. Military attaché Gron shifted his considerable bulk in the reinforced chair, scales scraping against metal with the patience of a predator who'd already eaten. "We've analyzed this engagement 47 times, analyst. 1 human died. 1 scout was extracted. The mathematics are elementary. Elementary mathematics don't mobilize 67,000 vessels," Vextar replied, compound eyes tracking data streams that painted the hologram in shades of tactical absurdity. Elementary mathematics don't prompt a species to declare something called blood debt over a single casualty in a border skirmish. Cultural observer Zillian drifted closer, her ethereal form casting no shadow but somehow darkening the room anyway. "Perhaps that's precisely the problem. You're applying elementary mathematics to a species that apparently operates on principles we haven't catalogued." The hologram showed the moment with crystalline clarity. Human operative designation Delta 47 maintaining defensive position, while Fuvarak raiders closed on the extraction point. Scout Pip-Tech of the Miran Collective cowering behind inadequate cover. Standard tactical doctrine suggested the human should have prioritized his own survival. The scout was expendable, part of a species that bred prolifically and contributed little to the war effort beyond reconnaissance. Instead, Delta 47 had done something that defied every military algorithm in the Kethmoran database. "Watch his positioning," Vexstein instructed, highlighting the human's movement patterns. "He deliberately exposes himself to concentrated fire, not to gain tactical advantage, not to complete mission objectives. He sacrifices optimal survival probability to save a Miran scout who weighs 37 kilograms and whose military value registers as negligible," Grond finished, genuine confusion bleeding through his usual pragmatism. "It makes no strategic sense." "None whatsoever," Zillan agreed, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested deeper contemplation. "Which is what makes it fascinating. When did you first notice the human fleet movements?" Vextar's mandibles resumed their clicking, faster now. 43 hours post-incident. Initially appeared to be standard reinforcement protocols. Then the civilian contractors started arriving. Then the merchant vessels. Then, he gestured at a secondary display showing fleet composition data that painted space in shades of inexplicable. Then the scientific research ships. "Research ships?" Gron's laugh rumbled like tectonic shifts. "What are they planning to study? The tactical value of pointless sacrifice?" "That's what troubles me," Vexstars admitted. "Human military doctrine emphasizes efficiency, resource conservation, acceptable losses. This response contradicts their own established patterns. It's as if Delta 47's death triggered some behavioral protocol we haven't identified." The hologram cycled through its death sequence again. Delta 47 taking plasma fire across his torso, medical readings flatlined within 2.3 seconds, but his final movement, that peculiar turn toward the scout's position, remained analytically opaque. "He said something," Zillan observed, "in the final moment. The linguistic analysis indicates vocalization in human standard, but the translation algorithms are struggling with context." "Struggling how?" Gron demanded. "The phrase translates literally as, 'I've got you covered, little brother,' but the contextual matrices suggest multiple interpretations. Tactical communication, familial reference, cultural idiom, or," she paused, ethereal form shimmering with uncertainty, "something else entirely." Baxter stopped clicking. In the sudden silence, the tactical display seemed more ominous than informative. Little brother. The scout wasn't human, wasn't even mammalian. How does a species develop kinship terminology for entities they've never encountered before? More importantly, Gron added, scales shifting with what might have been unease, why does that terminology apparently justify mobilizing their entire military? The communication array chimed with incoming priority data. Vextar absorbed the transmission through his neural interface, compound eyes widening as new information cascaded through his consciousness. The human fleet has reached the Thuvarak border, he announced. They're not seeking territorial concessions. They're not demanding resource compensation. They've issued a single ultimatum. Surrender the specific individuals responsible for Delta 47's death, or face what they term consequences proportional to the offense. Proportional? Gron's laugh held less humor this time. They're threatening an entire star system over one soldier. Not threatening, Zilan corrected, her harmonics shifting to frequencies that made the other two unconsciously lean away. They've already disabled the orbital defense platforms. Disabled, not destroyed. They're demonstrating restraint, while simultaneously proving capability. Vextar's analysis subroutines ran probability calculations that kept reaching the same impossible conclusion. They're not waging war. They're conducting some form of justice operation, as if Delta 47's death represents a violation of cosmic law rather than acceptable military casualties. Cosmic law? Grunt scoffed. What kind of species treats individual soldiers as sacred? The kind, Zilan replied quietly, that apparently considers protection of allies a religious obligation. I've been reviewing their cultural databases. Humans have mythology dating back millennia about warriors who transcend death through sacrifice for others. They have ceremonies honoring unknown soldiers. They have concepts of duty that supersede survival instincts. The tactical display updated with new fleet positions, 67,000 human vessels arranged in formations that suggested not conquest, but something far more precise and far more terrifying. They're not trying to win territory, Vextar realized, his clicking resuming at a frantic pace. They're trying to balance some kind of moral equation. Delta 47 died protecting one scout, so they mobilize enough firepower to protect every scout in the galaxy. That's insane, Gron protested. That's humans, Zilan replied. And now we have to explain to the Galactic Defense Committee why a species has turned a minor border skirmish into a moral crusade. The hologram flickered back to timestamp 14:23 and 7 seconds, Delta 47's final moment frozen in analytical light. A human soldier making eye contact with an alien scout, speaking words of kinship across species barriers, choosing death over tactical efficiency. I've got you covered, little brother. Vextar realized, with the cold certainty of mathematical proof, that those 5 words had just redefined the strategic balance of the entire sector. And somewhere in human space, 67,000 ships continued their approach, each one carrying beings who apparently considered the death of a single soldier sufficient justification for rewriting the rules of interstellar conflict. The analysis was complete. The implications were just beginning. The interrogation chamber smelled of antiseptic and fear, though Admiral Kossuane couldn't determine which was more pungent. Across the titanium table, Scout Piptek hunched in his restraint harness, whiskers twitching with the nervous energy of prey that had survived predation through sheer accident. "Begin recording," Kossuane commanded, her gills fluttering with professional indifference. "Incident debrief. Classification 7 Alpha. Witness designation Prime." Dr. Riendahl adjusted his optical enhancers, focusing on micro-expressions that his xenopsychology training had taught him to recognize across 43 species. "Scout Piptek, you understand this session is voluntary." Voluntary? The Mirren's voice squeaked through universal translators calibrated for beings 3 times his size. "Your ships surrounded my transport. Your soldiers escorted me here. I'm beginning to question your species' definition of choice." Kossuane's laugh was like water over broken glass. "Refreshing honesty. Now explain why the humans have declared vendetta over your extraction." "I never asked them to." Pip's whiskers flattened against his skull. The tactical situation was deteriorating. My communication array had failed. Standard protocol dictated abandonment of position and self-extraction to secondary coordinates. But you didn't extract, Dr. Riendo observed, stylus dancing across his datapad. You remained in compromised position for 17 additional minutes. Why? Pipthic's amber eyes darted between his interrogators, seeking escape routes that didn't exist. The human soldier. He told me to stay put, said reinforcements were inbound. Delta 47, Coswain confirmed, consulting her briefing materials. Standard human military designation. Did he identify himself personally? He said, Piptic paused, tiny claws scratching gouges in the table's surface. He said his name was Marcus. Marcus something with too many syllables. But then he looked at my equipment loadout and started laughing. Dr. Rindal's optical enhancers whirred as they focused more intently. Laughing? In combat conditions? Not mockery, Pipthek clarified quickly. Something else. Recognition, maybe? He asked if I was running Mirren Standard Reconnaissance Gear Model 47. When I confirmed, he shook his head and said, Figures. Command always sends scouts out with equipment older than my grandfather's dentures. Dentures? Costawain's gills stopped fluttering entirely. What are dentures? Artificial teeth, Dr. Riendal supplied absently, still recording. But the cultural context suggests familiarity with aging processes across species lines. Unusual for frontline personnel. Continue, Scout. Pipthic's whiskers began their nervous dance again. He started upgrading my equipment. Right there, under fire, pulled components from his own pack, jury-rigged my sensors to his tactical network, said I'd never get accurate readings with Stone Age garbage when there were proper instruments available. He shared classified military technology with foreign reconnaissance personnel. Costwain's voice carried disbelief sharp enough to cut atmospheric shielding. During active combat? More than shared, Pipthick whispered. He taught me how to use it, explained targeting algorithms, showed me threat assessment protocols, even recalibrated my defensive systems. Said any scout worth saving should have tools worth using. Dr. Riendal's stylus stopped moving. Worth saving, interesting phrasing. I asked him about that, Piptic continued, his voice growing smaller. Asked why he was helping enemy personnel. He stopped working on my equipment for a moment and looked at me directly. Really looked, you know, like he was seeing me instead of just another alien. And, Coswain prompted. He said, Enemy? Kid, you're a scout. Your job is gathering intelligence to keep your people safe. My job is gathering intelligence to keep my people safe. We're doing the same work for different teams, but we're not enemies. We're colleagues. The interrogation chamber fell silent, except for the ambient hum of life support systems working to process 3 different atmospheric requirements simultaneously. Dr. Riendal's optical enhancers clicked as they refocused. Colleagues, he repeated slowly. A human soldier, under enemy fire, reclassified you from hostile operative to professional peer. It gets stranger, Pithek admitted. When the Thuvarak raiders started their final approach, he didn't just prepare defensive positions. He explained his strategy to me, said if I understood his tactical reasoning, I could adapt and survive, even if he couldn't. Cossawain leaned forward, her bulk casting shadows that made the chamber feel smaller. He planned his own death. Not planned, accepted. Pipthic's claws had worn grooves completely through the table's surface. He showed me 3 different escape routes, explained the timing for each, identified which cover positions would remain viable under sustained fire. Then he looked at his ammunition count and said, This is going to be close. Define close, Dr. Riendal requested. He had enough ammunition to suppress the raiders for 90 seconds. My fastest escape route required 93 seconds to reach safe extraction range. Pipthic's whiskers had gone completely still. He told me the math didn't work. So he should have abandoned position, Coswain concluded. preserved his own life according to tactical optimization. That's what I told him, Pipthick agreed. I said I understood the mathematics, that my survival wasn't worth his death, that acceptable losses included reconnaissance personnel, but he just smiled and started checking his weapon systems. What did he say? Dr. Riendahl asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected the answer. He said mathematics were useful for calculating probabilities, but useless for calculating worth. Pipthick's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Then he said something I didn't understand until later. The two interrogators waited, professional patience masking growing unease. He said his species had learned something important about the universe. Every life saved echoes forward through time, creating possibilities that mathematics can't predict. He said saving me might seem insignificant now, but 20 years from now I might save someone else, who might save someone else, and eventually the cascade of preserved lives would justify his death retroactively. Retroactive justification, Dr. Riendahl repeated, his stylus trembling slightly. He was creating moral equations that extend beyond his own lifespan. But that's not even the strange part, Pipthick continued. Right before the final assault, when he was preparing to sacrifice optimal survival probability, he looked at me one more time and said, "Hey, little brother, when you get home, tell your family that Marcus Delacroix thought you were worth dying for. Tell them humans remember their own." The interrogation chamber's atmospheric processes couldn't handle the sudden change in breathing patterns, as both interrogators realized what they had just heard. "Little brother," Cossawain said slowly. "He claimed kinship with you?" "And then?" Dr. Riendahl asked, though he was no longer taking notes. "Then he died buying me those extra 3 seconds. The recording equipment continued its mechanical function, preserving testimony that would reshape interstellar relations. But in the silence that followed, both interrogators understood they had just documented something far more dangerous than military tactics. They had documented the moment when a human soldier had redefined an alien scout as family, and died to prove it. Ambassador Quinthal's diplomatic chambers had hosted peace negotiations for 3 centuries, but never had the ornate meeting space felt quite so much like a tomb. Across the crystalline conference table, Fleet Commander Reyes sat with the stillness of a loaded weapon, her dark eyes reflecting starlight from the viewports with unsettling intensity. "Commander, your fleet composition defies every convention of interstellar warfare," Quinthal began, her melodious voice carrying harmonics designed to promote calm. "Mining vessels, cargo haulers, scientific expeditions. You've militarized your civilian infrastructure." "We've mobilized our people," Reyes corrected, her tone carrying the flat finality of closed discussions. "There's a difference." War leader Takmor bristled from his position at the table's far end, ceremonial battle scarring gleaming under the chamber's soft lighting. "Your response exceeds all proportional limits. 1 soldier died in legitimate combat operations. Such losses are expected, acceptable, forget." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees as Reyes turned her attention to the Tuvarak commander. Marcus Delacroix was 26 years old. He had 2 younger sisters who called him every week, parents who sent care packages filled with homemade cookies, and a fiancée who's been planning their wedding for 18 months. He was not forgettable. "Emotional attachments," Thakmor dismissed with a wave of his clawed hand. "Personal sentiment has no place in strategic planning." "Personal sentiment," Reyes replied, "is the only thing that gives strategic planning any meaning." Quinthal's diplomatic training had prepared her for many forms of negotiation failure, but not for exchanges where fundamental assumptions about reality diverged so completely. "Commander, surely you understand that individual casualties cannot justify fleet mobilization on this scale." "Can't they?" Reyes asked, pulling up a holographic display that showed current human fleet positions. "We've deployed 67,000 vessels representing every major colony, every trading consortium, every research institution in human space. Do you know why?" Irrational human psychology, Thacmore suggested. Because Marcus Delacroix died protecting someone who wasn't human, Reyes explained patiently. He extended our definition of us to include a Miran scout he'd never met, from a species we'd barely encountered. That act of inclusion creates obligation. Obligation to whom? Quintal pressed, genuinely confused. To the principle he died defending. Reyes gestured to secondary displays showing human civilian participation in the fleet action. Every mining ship out there represents workers who heard that story and decided Marcus was right, that scouts deserve protection regardless of species. Every research vessel carries scientists who concluded that knowledge gathering is sacred work, whether performed by humans or Mirans. Every cargo hauler is crewed by people who understand that supply lines are lifelines, no matter who needs supply. You're describing mass delusion, Thacmore said flatly. We're describing mass conviction, Reyes countered. There's a difference, though I don't expect you to understand it. The communication array chimed with an incoming transmission from Thuvarak High Command. Thacmore activated the secure channel, his expression confident as he received updated orders from his superiors. High Command offers the following terms, he announced. We will provide monetary compensation equivalent to standard military death benefits. We will acknowledge the combat effectiveness of the deceased human soldier. We will even establish a memorial plaque in his honor. These concessions exceed normal protocols for enemy casualties. Reyes was quiet for so long that the chamber's life support systems became audible, a soft whisper of recycled atmosphere that somehow emphasized the growing tension. You want to buy him, she finally said. We want to resolve this efficiently, Thacmore replied. Your soldier is dead. No amount of violence will resurrect him. Accept practical compensation and withdraw your fleets. Counter-proposal, Reyes said, her voice carrying new overtones that made both ambassadors unconsciously lean away. You surrender every individual who participated in the engagement that killed Marcus Delacroix. They stand trial under human jurisdiction for murder. When justice has been served, we go home. Murder? Quinthorpe's harmonic frequencies shifted toward genuine alarm. Commander, he died in legitimate military action. There was no criminal intent. He died protecting a non-combatant intelligence gatherer, Reyes corrected. Under human law, attacking someone who's actively protecting civilians constitutes criminal assault with lethal intent. Under human morality, killing someone who's demonstrating the highest virtues of interspecies cooperation constitutes an attack on civilization itself. Your laws don't apply to non-human actions, Thacmore protested. They do now, Reyes replied simply. Marcus Delacroix extended human protection to alien personnel. By reciprocity, alien personnel who harm humans under such circumstances fall under human justice. The logic was so circular, so audaciously presumptuous, that both ambassadors struggled to formulate responses. Quinthor recovered first. Commander, you're claiming universal jurisdiction based on the moral example of one soldier. One soldier who died proving that universal jurisdiction already exists, Reyes agreed. He just formalized what was already true, that anyone willing to die protecting innocence has earned the right to define innocence. Thacmore's battle scarring flushed darker with mounting frustration. This is absurd. You cannot reshape interstellar law because one human made one questionable tactical decision. Watch us, Reyes said, and activated a new holographic display showing real-time fleet movements. The human vessels had arranged themselves in a formation that looked less like a military deployment and more like a ceremonial honor guard, precise, deliberate, beautiful in its deadly symmetry. But more disturbing than the formation was its composition, ships bearing civilian markings flying alongside military cruisers, research vessels equipped with hastily mounted weapons systems, cargo haulers modified for extended patrol duties. You've turned your entire civilization into an extension of your military, Quinthal observed with growing horror. We've discovered that our military was always an extension of our civilization, Reyes corrected. Marcus just reminded us what we're actually fighting for. And what is that? Takmur demanded. Rhea smiled for the first time since entering the chamber, an expression that somehow managed to be both gentle and terrifying. The radical idea that every thinking being deserves someone willing to die for them. The diplomatic chamber fell silent as both ambassadors contemplated the implications of a species that had weaponized empathy itself. The Philosophical Council of Kepler Station convened in emergency session exactly 96 hours after the humans had finished their work. Around the vast circular chamber, representatives from 47 species struggled to process what they had witnessed. Not a war, not a conquest, but something far more unsettling. "The human fleet has withdrawn," announced Councillor Yethara, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into nervous patterns. "Complete evacuation of Thurvarak space as of 400 standard time." "Drawn," echoed Councillor Vorth, his mechanical voice processing the word like a foreign concept. "After achieving total tactical superiority, they simply left." Scout Piptek sat in the witness alcove, no longer the trembling prey creature from his interrogation. 3 weeks of being the galaxy's most famous survivor had changed him in ways that worried xenopsychologists across known space. His whiskers no longer twitched with nervous energy. Instead, they moved with deliberate precision, as if he were constantly analyzing threat vectors that others couldn't perceive. "They didn't withdraw," he corrected quietly. "They completed their mission." "Mission?" Councillor Zeftin's tentacles writhed with agitation. "They disabled 17 defense platforms, captured 43 enemy combatants, conducted military tribunals on sovereign territory, and executed 12 Thuvak war leaders. That's not mission completion. That's conquest, followed by inexplicable restraint." "No," Pipthik insisted, his amber eyes reflecting depths that hadn't existed before his rescue. "They did exactly what Marcus told them to do. They demonstrated that attacking someone under human protection carries consequences that transcend military defeat." Dr. Riendal consulted his datapad, optical enhancers whirring as they processed weeks of accumulated observations. The human tribunal proceedings were unusual. They refused territorial concessions, declined resource compensation, rejected strategic advantage. They demanded only specific individuals responsible for what they termed violation of sacred trust. Sacred trust? Councillor Yethara's light patterns shifted toward confusion. Between species that had never established formal relations? Between individuals who chose to establish informal relations, Piptik explained. Marcus didn't die protecting Moran interests, he died protecting me, personally. The humans understood that distinction. Councillor Vorth's mechanical systems hummed with processing effort. "Explain the significance of this personal versus political differentiation." Pipthik stood, his small frame somehow commanding the vast chamber's attention. "Marcus spent 17 minutes teaching me how to survive. He shared technology, tactics, knowledge, not because his superiors ordered it, but because he decided I was worth saving. When he died protecting me, he wasn't representing humanity's diplomatic position toward the Miran Collective. He was representing one person's commitment to another person." "And the human response?" Councillor Zeftin pressed. "They honored that commitment," Piptek replied simply. 67,000 ships, millions of personnel, massive resource expenditure, all to demonstrate that when a human extends personal protection, that protection is backed by their entire civilization. The chamber erupted in multilingual debate as representatives struggled to grasp the implications. Through the chaos, Dr. Riendal's voice cut with clinical precision. "We're witnessing the emergence of a new form of deterrence, not based on territorial security or resource competition, but on interpersonal obligation, elevated to species-wide policy." "It's madness!" Councillor Yethara protested, her crystalline form flickering with distress patterns. "No civilization can survive treating individual relationships as matters of cosmic significance." "Can't they?" asked a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Fleet Commander Reyes entered the council chamber with the same dangerous stillness she'd displayed during negotiations. Behind her walked a small procession of humans carrying items that seemed absurdly mundane for such a formal setting. A wooden box, several framed photographs, and what appeared to be baked goods, wrapped in cheerful packaging. "Commander Reyes," Councillor Worf acknowledged. "Your presence was not requested." "My presence was necessary," she replied, placing the wooden box on the central testimony platform. "You're debating the implications of our actions without understanding their foundation." She opened the box, revealing personal effects that transformed abstract military statistics into devastating human reality. Letters written in careful handwriting, a digital storage device containing family videos, military commendations, and a small jewelry box holding an engagement ring. "Marcus Delacroix," Reyes announced to the silent chamber. "Son, brother, fiancé, soldier. He joined our military because he believed protection of others was humanity's highest calling. He died proving that belief extends beyond species boundaries." "Personal effects," Councillor Zefton observed dismissively. "Emotional manipulation designed to obscure rational analysis." "Evidence," Reyes corrected, activating the digital storage device, "of why humans consider individual relationships worth defending." The holographic display filled with images of Marcus laughing with his sisters, helping elderly neighbors with household repairs, teaching children to play games that required cooperation rather than competition. Video after video showed a man whose default response to others' needs was immediate assistance, regardless of inconvenience to himself. "This is the human you killed," Reyes told the chamber. "Not a military unit, not a strategic asset. A person who spent his life proving that individual kindness creates collective strength." Pipthick approached the display, his whiskers trembling as he recognized something in the images. "He did the same thing with me. The way he looked at those children, helped those neighbors, that's exactly how he treated me, like I mattered." "Because you did matter," Reyes replied, "to him and therefore to us." The profound silence that followed was broken by an unexpected source. Councillor Worth's mechanical systems emitting sounds that resembled organic weeping. "Analysis complete," the artificial being announced. "Human behavior patterns indicate species-wide commitment to principle that individual moral value transcends collective strategic interest. Implications for interstellar relations, catastrophic for aggressor species, unprecedented protection for alliance partners." Dr. Rendall's stylus trembled as he recorded final observations. "We're witnessing the emergence of a civilization that has solved the classic conflict between individual ethics and state policy by making individual ethics the foundation of state policy." "Solved or created?" Councillor Yathara asked weakly. "Both," Reyes admitted. "Our response to Marcus's death has established new precedent. Harm someone under human protection, and you're not fighting our military, you're fighting our collective conscience. And human conscience, as you've discovered, mobilizes more effectively than human strategy." Pipthick moved closer to the holographic display, studying images of Marcus with his family. "He told me I was worth dying for, but I think he was really saying I was worth living for, that the galaxy becomes better when people choose to protect each other across species lines." "And now?" Councillor Zefton asked with obvious trepidation. Commander Reyes closed Marcus's memory box with ceremonial care. "Now everyone knows that human protection means something, that our friendships carry weight, that attacking our allies means facing not just our weapons, but our principles. Deterrence through demonstrated moral commitment," Dr. Riendal summarized. "Unprecedented in galactic history." "Unprecedented and effective," Reyes agreed, "because now every species has to consider, do they want humans as enemies who will fight strategically, or do they want humans as friends who will fight personally?" As the human delegation departed, leaving the philosophical council to contemplate their reports, Pipthick remained at the central platform. He reached toward the holographic images of Marcus Delacroix, the man who had died calling him little brother, and whispered something too quiet for the recording equipment to capture. But across the galaxy, in human space, families gathered around dinner tables where empty chairs held place settings for soldiers who would never return home. They spoke of Marcus Delacroix, who most had never met, as if he were family, because in choosing to die for an alien scout, he had redefined family to include anyone worth protecting. And in the cold mathematics of interstellar politics, that redefinition had just become the galaxy's most powerful weapon, the knowledge that somewhere in the universe existed a species willing to treat individual relationships as sacred, and possessing the firepower to make that sacredness respected. The age of wars for territory and resources was ending, the age of wars for principles had begun. And everyone involved was starting to suspect that the humans had been preparing for this transition far longer than anyone realized.